Happy OTA day, everyone. The time has come. The most requested OTA card has finally been hidden. Sort of. That guy. Y'all remember complaining about Zabu? We're gonna make him activate, hopefully as a community. Yeah, it'd be great. Yeah. No, they've tested it and that's not a good idea. So now, Zabu is a 1/2 on reveal. Give each 4-cost card in your deck 1 cost less. There's a lot of danger with this card in my opinion. Because 1, it's in perpetuity, again. So it just applies it to all cards in the deck. As long as you didn't draw your Shang-Chi, your Ms. Marvel, your etc., the cards that you used to synergize with Zabu. Now, there's a chance that you can get it reduced pretty quickly on turn 1 and then never have to think about it again. I will have to commend the synergy of keeping it thematic with now this is a card that Shauna could produce as well, so that it always affects the rates of how good Shauna is actually. But thematically speaking with Khazar, I guess it kind of helps because it's a way you can now ramp the Khazar out. It's just a good piece of tech overall, in my opinion. You can destroy it early, that's totally fine. But I think one of the scarier things in this too is this might help so many other decks. Like I'm even thinking about throwing this into Destroy exclusively for a 3-cost Shang-Chi. I kind of like it. I think it's a unique way to approach the effect, considering that, as they say here, it activate just wasn't working the way that they wanted it to. And we all know the ongoing version of it was way too strong. I don't care. I'm sorry, I disagree with you if you thought that it was fine, but it was way too strong. And now there's at least that, okay, you can get this to be a good card, kind of like the old version of the card, but there are some counters and some limitations along the way, depending on when you draw it. So I'm a fan of that. They finally addressed Hela. I just, again, indirectly, but sort of. They fixed Hellcow up just a tad by adding a power, but taking away one of those activated discards. And I'm a big fan of it. Even though I don't think this is going to dramatically reduce the play rate in the sense that the game developers may want. Because one of the biggest things about the deck, which is just a 50-50 coin flip deck when it comes to win rate, one of the things they really, really want is for people to just play it less, because it's less fun to go up against for the general player base that's playing up against it, where we could see those play rates, they were as high as 20-25% at one point in this recent reign of Hela. So they first addressed the power with the Hela thing. Luke Cage said, so what, no big deal. But now if we address Hellcow, maybe that one extra card after the Hela gets played on 6, that maybe that's just enough, because you're going down from 60 power roughly on average on the final turn to maybe 40 power on the final turn, maybe this helps. I'm not too optimistic that it will be, to be completely transparent. I'm not. But maybe it backs off enough people from playing the deck that we just feel its effect less. Next up is the Widow's Kiss, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of sad about this change because it is a really classy change to this card because it makes it a lot more interactive. They've now made Widow's Kiss, instead of a 0/0 ongoing with the -3, it's a 0-4 with the new effect entirely of destroy this when your side of this location is full. That is really classy because it does 2 things. Number 1, it forces that lane to create a little bit of clog, but then also puts a defensive element on it too, where sure, you could wait until maybe turn 6 and then destroy that final piece by filling up the lane, but then also Clog can combat it by then refilling that lane back up with something else afterwards, like, you know, put down a goblin because it's nearly guaranteed to land in that lane as well. So there's some cool things that can be done both offensively and defensively with this card. The thing that makes me the most sad about it, though, is that this may knock down White Widow from being the best 2-drop in the game, because she had dethroned Jeff the Baby Landshark for quite some time, because it's an incredibly powerful effect. It makes it a 3-card lane, because then it used to bring down to 0. But now to know that as a player, oh, I got the Widow's Kiss. Okay, I can just fill it up before the final turn, and I'll have that spot back. That makes it a great deck now to play against, because Clog is infuriating. And the developers, they even went on further in this to elaborate on Clog is not a fun archetype to go up against. So we're going to lean more into this combatable, temporary style of Clog. And I think that it makes a lot more sense. But I also acknowledge the synergy. The second I read the new version, it makes total sense. It now has a great synergy with Red Guardian. Since the devs went back and changed Viper to specifically targeting the lowest power deck in that lane, it's been a really good card. And one of the big reasons that Clog in particular, or the Clog mini package in particular, has gotten really strong in Marvel Snap. They've recognized that maybe 3.5 was overshooting it just a tad, because now you're definitely hitting very specific cards, so it doesn't need to have that upside downside mixture built into it. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm not upset about it. I don't think people are gonna get stopped by saying, oh, 3-4 Viper, dang it. But maybe there's between this and White Widow, do you think Clog is now dead? Now Scream, in a way you could say, is a completely different card versus release. And we don't typically see too many changes happen to a card the week after it's been released. It's happened before, like Hydra Bob, but actually that was midweek, wasn't it? Yeah, that was before it dropped. Wow. But anyway, I digress. The point is, Scream is getting 2 different changes. Number 1, we've known about. They announced it in the team answers a couple of days back, and straight up said that Scream is no longer going to be able to affect the unrevealed cards in Marvel Snap. They are applying that same mindset and logic to Kingpin and Fisk Tower. I have heard both sides of the argument of this, of it makes sense and it doesn't make sense. I am on the sides of the devs, though. I hate to tell y'all, if you're on that other side, the biggest reason is, as they've mentioned, the perfect example, and one I've used in conversation repeatedly, Hazmat. What happens if Hazmat can start affecting unrevealed cards? You open such a weird, awful gateway of, well, this should affect this, and this should affect this, unrevealed. Only Juggernaut really affects the unrevealed cards in the way that you want it to, because it specifically says it on the text of the card. So now implementing this mechanical change to Scream, totally on board with it. Makes a lot more sense. In a way, it weakens Scream because Juggernaut's a great 2-3 combo to kind of, put things into line, but Scream got compensated for. Literally, that's like their own terminology. They just gave her an extra power buff. If you haven't noticed in the photo, she's now a 2-3. So, I mean, it makes me want to try the mini build packages of like Scream, Spider-Man, Miles, and Polaris. Like maybe that just becomes this odd mid package that we can implement into other potential combos and decks. I'm not sure, because I want Scream to be a good card. And now with one movement, she's a 2-5. It's pretty good stats. Speaking of pretty good stats, Grandmaster got an extra buff of power too. And thank goodness, because he's a great card, but he's always a card that gets cut. He's like the 14th option, just because you always feel bad leaving him in one of the side lanes, and it's a very weak position to be in when he's a 2-2. Now at a 2-3, I think there's at least a little bit of substance to him, so in that mana to power ratio, you feel a lot better playing him out and then leaving him off on the side. Very often, I felt like I was trying to find other ways to make Grandmaster either destroyed or pick him back up and do his effect again, but even at a 2-3 now, and you get 1 proc of the effect, that 1 point of power, it really does make a lot of difference. Just like with Okoye. But this one, I think, has a much larger effect because it's a Series 1 card. Like, this is something that is going to affect new players right away. extra point of power on the board when you're first learning the game on a card that typically ends up getting cut relatively fast in the game. 1 point of power makes a lot of difference. So I like the idea of them saying Okoye has always been kind of the first cut card. What's the reason for that? You want to get her on turn 2, but now you don't feel as bad if you get her on maybe turn 3 or turn 4 because of 1 extra point of power. In almost every scenario, 1 point of power makes a difference. Like I said, in almost every scenario, 1 point of power makes a difference. I don't think this changes Emperor Hulkling in any capacity. They gave him an extra power, made him a 6/12. So now he's on par with Hulk and Magneto. Why would I want this instead of that? I don't know. This has a lot of downside, more than it has upside. So I think with that same logic, I'd be interested at a 6/14, because now it's kind of like Agatha or Giganto, where yeah, there's a great upside, but there's a limitation. There's a chance of happening at the same time. That's what I think Emperor Hulkling needs to become a reasonable choice, at least at, 6 cost. That's it. There you go. That's everything we need to know about the current OTA. Which was your favorite? For me, I think it's probably Zabu, because it's going to open up some unique and fun deck building possibilities with this new version of him. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to test it out on stream. Thank you all so much for watching. You know the deal. Like, subscribe. See you next time.